In the summer of 1940, in a small consulate office in Kaunas, Lithuania, one man sat at his desk with a pen in his hand and a decision that could change or end his life. That man was Chiune Sugihara, Japan's vice consul to Lithuania. What he did in the weeks that followed would defy his government, risk his career, and save thousands. But this story doesn't begin with heroism. It begins with silence. World War II had engulfed Europe. Hitler's forces were rising, and Jews across the continent were being herded, hunted, and marked for death. In Lithuania, desperate Jewish refugees, many of them from Poland, were caught in a tightening noose. They couldn't go west, the Nazis were there. They couldn't go east, the Soviet Union had closed its borders. Their only hope, a visa. Any visa, a stamp in a passport that meant freedom. And so they came, hundreds at first, then thousands, to the gate of the Japanese consulate. And they begged. Chiune Sugihara was no rebel. He was a career diplomat, disciplined, quiet. He had spent years in foreign service, from Manchuria to Moscow, following orders and serving his country. But this time he hesitated, because the Japanese government had made its stance clear. Do not issue visas to refugees without proper documentation. Do not interfere. Do not attract attention. Sugihara sent multiple telegrams back to Tokyo, asking for permission to grant the visas. 3 times the reply came back, no. But as he looked at the lines of terrified families, the children clinging to mothers, the fathers with trembling hands, something shifted inside him. On the morning of July 31st, 1940, Chiune Sugihara made his choice. He would disobey. He sat down at his desk and began to write. By hand, he filled out transit visas, official Japanese documents that would allow Jews to travel through Japan, and from there to safe havens elsewhere. He wrote hour after hour, day after day. His wife brought him food. He barely slept. He knew the risk to his job, to his family, even to his life. But he also knew the cost of inaction. In just a few weeks, Sugihara issued over 2,000 visas, many of them to entire families. Some were forged, some were incomplete, some stretched the rules until they broke. But they worked. Armed with Sugihara's visas, thousands of Jewish refugees boarded trains across the Soviet Union, through Siberia to Vladivostok, and then to Japan. From there, many scattered across the world to Shanghai, Canada, Palestine, Australia, and the United States. In total, over 6,000 lives were saved, because one man picked up his pen and wrote yes when everyone else said no. When the consulate was closed, and Sugihara was forced to leave Lithuania, refugees lined the train station platform to say goodbye. As the train pulled away, he leaned out the window, still signing visas, still stamping passports, and tossing them into the crowd. It was the last gift he could give. After the war, Sugihara returned to Japan. His act of defiance did not go unnoticed. He was dismissed from the foreign service, some say as punishment. Others claim it was post-war downsizing. But either way, he faded into obscurity. He worked odd jobs, sold light bulbs, never spoke much of what he'd done. For decades, the world forgot. But the survivors did not. In the 1960s and 70s, Jewish families who owed their lives to Sugihara began to search for him. They found him living modestly in a Tokyo suburb. They told their stories, brought him letters, photos of grandchildren. They told him, because of you we are alive. In 1985, Chiune Sugihara was honored by Yad Vashem as one of the righteous among the nations, Israel's highest honor for non-Jews who saved lives during the Holocaust. A tree was planted in his name in Jerusalem. He finally received the recognition he had never asked for. When he died the following year, in 1986, thousands of people around the world mourned. The quiet man who had risked everything for strangers. Today, the people he saved, and their descendants, number in the tens of thousands. Doctors, artists, politicians, parents, entire generations who live because one man listened to his conscience instead of his orders. In a time of cruelty, Chiune Sugihara chose compassion. He didn't wear a uniform. He didn't carry a weapon. He didn't lead an army. He sat at a desk, picked up a pen, and fought back, not with violence but with courage. A single signature, a single act of humanity, repeated thousands of times. That was his rebellion. That was his war, and in his own quiet way, that was his victory.